Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to share with you guys a game that I played using the London system as white earlier today. A lot of people have been asking me recently about the London system. It is by far my favorite opening for white of all time. And I will absolutely do a masterclass on that as well as a speed run. By the way, any opening that I present on this channel, of course, I will basically immediately follow that up with a speed run, so you don't have to worry about that. But this is one particular line that I thought you guys might find interesting, and there's a nice tactic later on in the video, and I'm going to use this as kind of a test run, and I need your feedback. I need you guys to let me know in the comments whether you like this or not. A new series that I'm going to start fairly soon on tactics recognition. So I need you guys to let me know, is this something you would be interested in or excited about? Okay, so we are playing the London here as white. And yeah, just trying to get back into that 2200 range where I think it should be. So here is the accelerated London system. They're playing kind of a Caro-Kann setup. Of course, this is the London. So these are all basically book moves here. We create our nice triangle of pawns. And then they play bishop to d6. And then here, I'm going to turn the engine off for just a second. So at this spot, when there is tension between the d6 and the f4 bishop, white basically has three options. You can take, you can drop it back to g3, or you can leave it there, ignore it, and play knight b to d2. So technically by a little bit, like 6/100ths of a pawn, technically taking that is best in this particular position. The queen retakes, you jump your knight into e5, and at some point it could possibly turn out to look like a stonewall attack in some variations. But I've made a living off of this, and I wanted to present this to you guys as a preview of what's to come in the London Masterclass, but a line that I want to encourage you guys to play around with and try. So the computer will tell you that's good. Dropping this is back, dropping that back to G3 is good. I like to leave it there and let them take, and that's what happened in this game. So I played knight B to D2. They took, and I took back. And you might say, well, why would you do this? I thought double pawns were bad. If you guys remember from the double pawns lesson, and you are right. Most of the time, yeah, most of the time double pawns are bad, right? But this is one of those exceptions to the rule. So what I like to do from here is the computer will tell you he wants to get the bishop to d3, but what I like to do is to play g6, fianchetto this bishop, and then play h4. So we have this kind of tic-tac-toe kind of structure of pawns on the dark squares, and then we have the complementary bishop on the light squares. But I'll tell you why a little bit later, why I like the bishop on g2. So in the game here, my opponent castled. I go ahead and play G3. These are all like top moves or second best move. They play knight B to D7. I fianchetto the bishop. And here they played C5. Okay, so this is a little bit different. All right, so I'll come back to this. This is what happened in the game. But let's say that black doesn't do this and they don't create this tension between the C5 and the D4 pawn, which is basically the best way to play against the London system if you're not playing a King's Indian type setup. Or from here, let's say black does something else. Let's say that they play h6. So what I like to do is to play h4 and not allow any nonsense over here with them, creating any kind of pawn storm. They're not likely to do that anyway when they castle short. Now, when they castle long in the London system, then it's an all-out full sin. It can be a little bit tricky. But then I like to castle. It's black's move. All right, so let's say they get their rook to the e file, and then I castle. Let's say they, play a5 or something. Then I get my rook to the e file. Let's say that they play b5, or maybe actually, let's say they play, yeah, that's fine, b5. And then here, I like to throw my knight into e5, but I never do that until I have a rook on e1, a rook or a queen, because I want to recapture on the e5 square with a piece, not a pawn. Let me repeat that. When the knight goes to e5, I want to recapture with a piece, not a pawn, because the whole idea with these double pawns is that when the moment's right, we're going to push here and we're going to have a field day on this semi-open e-file. So, for example, if we throw the knight into e5, if they take that, I'll take back with the rook. They can back up and attack our rook. That's all right. We'll drop it back to a dark square. They have the light square bishop. Let's say they fianchetto. I'm going to put all 17 of my rooks and all 5 of my queens on the e-file, and we're going to rip it open. All right, let's say they get the rook behind, trying to get some counterplay over here. We'll just line up. Let's say they push, and I don't really, kind of like the Stonewall, I don't really care what's going on over there until it's time. But now, boom, F5. And this is basically already lost for black because you can't take. So we have 1, 2, 3 attackers. They only have 2 defenders on this rook, so they can't take. If they push, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers on that. They only have 2 defenders, so they can't do that. So they're stuck. And this is kind of like middle game strategy number 10, the minority attack that we talked about, where you're just pushing a pawn. You're basically just kind of giving it away, forcing your opponent to make a decision that they don't want to have to make. Right. So basically in this line, and guys, I've made a living off of this in the London system for 15 years, literally 15 years. So the idea is to put pressure. This game is all about this guy right there, the E6 pawn. And this is another reason why I like to fianchetto the bishop, because if you put the bishop on D3, then it's not going to have any pressure on D5. So what I like to do is sometimes in some lines bring this bishop to H3, and we'll have so much pressure on this E6 pawn. So anyway, I want to encourage you guys to try out that line. Obviously, that's just a very, very small preview of what's to come in the London class that I'll do at some point. But let's go back to the game here, and I'll show you a different line that what happened. Oh, sorry, all the way back to the beginning. Okay, so here my opponent pushed C5, which is good. That's what they should be doing. So whenever there's tension between the C5 and the D4 pawn, I like to play knight to B3. It's the second best move. I like to kind of ask the question, Black, what are you doing? What do you want to do here? Because if you leave it, then we're threatening to just win a pawn. I mean, you can defend it. You could play. Probably the best response is for Black to simply play B6. But if you take it, I'm going to take back with a knight. I'm happy with that. And if you ever push this, it'll be just like the Stonewall. We love to see Black push C4 in this setup because we never have to worry about this tension. And once again, there's going to be some pressure here, maybe some tactical ideas on D5. But anyway, so my opponent pushes here A5, and they simply give me this pawn. Now, on the surface, it looks like, okay, white wins a pawn, but it looks like maybe it's going to be very difficult for white to hold on to this. So my opponent played queen to C7, putting pressure here. And then I played the best move. I'm going to support that. Centralize the queen. They don't have the dark bishop, so my queen's safe on a dark square. And they made a pretty big positional mistake here. They played knight to D7, and that looks nice because they have 2 attackers on the pawn. But what they missed is, and the reason I'm showing you this is because I want to remind you about the Carl Khan line we talked about in an advanced variation. But my opponent missed the opportunity to play A4. That is a move that must be played whenever Black gives up temporarily to this C5 pawn. So if you guys remember that, if you're playing this from white and this happens, you want to try to get in B4 as early as you can. Okay, so let's go back. Let's refresh our memory on the Carl Khan. E4, C6, D4, D5, advanced variation. We play C5, they play C3. We play knight C6, and they play knight to F3. Okay, what do we do here? We do not pin, because if we pin first, here's what happens. We pin, they take that pawn. Is just like the reverse London in the sense that it looks like Black's going to be able to get this back, and they can't. If you allow this, what are you going to do? E6, and now they play B4. And you're never getting this pawn back, at least anytime soon. And that's why in this advanced variation, once they bring the knight out to F3, we must take on D4. Then they take back, and then we pin, right? So if we go back to this game in the London system, Black missed their opportunity. It's a little different because they needed to make a pawn move instead of a capture, but they missed their opportunity to play this move. And now white can't play B4 because they can take en passant. So let me show you what happens. A very, very small inaccuracy completely changed the whole game. So they went here. I played B4, best move. I took. They tried to crack open the structure. And this is kind of similar to what we tried to do in the Karo Khan, but it doesn't work here because we can just take and we're not losing any material. I just took that. That was the best move. They took back with the queen. Now here, I did have our old tried and true 93% accuracy on this one, but here I did make a sizable mistake. I actually captured the queen because I'm just thinking, okay, they take back. I have 2 passed pawns, but actually even stronger, what I missed was A4. That was the best move. And now if they take, we take back with a knight, and we just have 2 passed pawns marching down the board. So I did miss an opportunity there. So they took. I castled. And then starting here. All right. So here's what I need you guys for. I really need you to leave me some feedback. So what I'm going to do in my new series, I'm going to call it Tactics Recognition Training. I'm going to, in every video, I'm going to give you like 5 positions. It'll be puzzle-like positions, but the difference is when you do a puzzle, you're taken right to the tactic. And you know there's a tactic on that move. Well, in a real game, obviously, we don't know where the tactic is going to be. So in my series, I'm going to take you to a spot that's close to the tactic, but I'm not going to tell you where the tactic is. It might be that move. It might be the second move. It might be 5 moves. It might be 6 moves down the line. You're never going to know where it is. And so my hope is that that will give you some in-game simulation training on how to use our tactics recognition, conditions to how to find these things. So this is going to be a test run. So in this position, my opponent played bishop to a6. So I want you guys to treat this as if I've hit the tactics recognition buzzer, but there may or may not be a tactic here. So pause the video. Does white have anything here? Okay, the answer is no. There's no tactic here. So I played rook f2 c1, get the rook on the c file. My opponent played bishop to c4, double attacking the a2 pawn. All right, pause the video. Is this a tactics recognition buzzer? Okay, no, it's not. All right, so I simply push the pawn to a3, and my opponent plays rook to a4. All right, pause the video. Is this a tactics opportunity? Ah.
Psych!
Just kidding. There's no tactic here. Okay, so I play knight to e5, attacking the bishop. And my opponent plays rook f to a8. All right, pause the video. All right. There it is. Now we have the tactic. All right, so if you didn't find it, here's another chance. Pause the video, see if you can find the tactic. Yeah, so this is tactics recognition condition number 1, pieces lined up on the same straight line. And it's also condition number 6, which is coordinated squares. Our knight, remember, a coordinated square is where you have multiple pieces attacking the same square. So our knight and rook are coordinated on c4, and we have this pin here with the pawn, so we have the nice tactic. I took on c4 with the knight. They took back, and you see it now? Yes, sir. Boom. We sacrificed the rook because of the pin. And in this position, we're not, that doesn't necessarily win a piece or anything, but it simplifies the position. And then from here, I went on to easily win, bring the king over, king activity. And I'll just kind of briefly show you the rest of the moves. No reason to talk too much more about this. Trade off, and my opponent resigned here. Okay. So again, please let me know in the comments, do you like that kind of tactics recognition stuff where you don't know where the tactic is? Would you like a series on that? If so, please let me know, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll see you on the next one.